Hello everyone, I'm Jacob, Community Manager with Paradox Studio Black, and welcome to Dev Diary 167, the greatest of them all. Today we will be covering most of the nomadic flavor that we've introduced with Cons of the Steppe, so without further ado, let's begin. Great are the plump princes in their southern fortresses, great are the chieftains of the Grass Sea, but greatest? Only one is greatest. Genghis Khan, universal ruler, Khan of Khans, biggest and baddest boy. Well, actually, Genghis is only one of the greatest, and the biggest baddie sometimes. In some other playthroughs, the greatest of Khans will arise organically. Heck, the greatest one could even be you. The key point is that there is only one greatest. Once someone has become greatest of Khans, no ruler ever can again. It's the highest point of nomadic achievement and an absolute game changer. Should you or an AI ruler achieve this highest of titles in time, the Mongol invasion won't happen. That perilous time of nomadic conquest under a single mighty ruler has basically just come early. Conversely, if Temujin becomes Genghis in your game session, it's over for other aspiring greatest of Khans. He is the greatest of Khans, and there will be no other. So be mindful of your Mongol invasion game rule. Now, it seems prudent to outline the path to becoming greatest of Khans, as well as the opportunity you're afforded to prevent others beating you to the finish line. All nomads can view the Become Greatest of All Khans decision, but you must be at Dominance level 5, and therefore must also be the Gurkhan in order to take the decision. In the screenshot shown, you can see some additional requirements to take the decision. Not only must you be the first to achieve greatest Khanship in your playthrough, but you need an empire of substantial size to command the obedience of a range of powerful nomads. Be warned, taking this big step will immediately provoke quite a war against all those who'd like to stop you. There is much to be gained by winning the Great War of Defiance against those arrayed against you, and much to be lost by failure. When you decide you're ready to face an uncertain number of foes in order to achieve your grand destiny, simply click the button. The Great War of Defiance begins, and every nearby ruler in the steppe joins it against you. At least one powerful non-nomad will join the war against you as well, since like historical Byzantium and China, they certainly have no interest in a great steppe conqueror arising. Though your obedient vassals will join on your side, this should still be a stiff fight to win. The coalition of rulers attack from all sides. If you're a player trying to stop an AI Gurkhan who's taken this decision, you'll be given a chance to join the cause and keep the greatest of Khans available to yourself. It can end poorly for the greatest of Khans, or in absolute triumph. And there it is. You, or your fearsome foe, get the greatest of Khans trait, a slew of big nomadic armies, and a mission to conquer a huge chunk of the world and establish your lasting reign within 75 years. This is done through the Reform the Great Khanate decision. But what tools do you have as greatest of Khan for expanding your empire? One is the offer submission or ruin interaction, quite similar to offer vassalization, but with some more intense effects. If your offer of submission is rudely refused, a particularly devastating war is instantly declared on the recipient. This war slaughters courtiers, destroys buildings, reduces development, and even erases holdings, and, helpfully, makes other rulers more willing to simply submit to you peacefully in the future. The casus belli used by offer submission or ruin is also available to the Great Khan independent of the interaction itself, to be freely used for seizing whole realms. However, it only has its devastating refusal effects when recurred as a result of, well, being refused. The greatest of Khans will lose these special capacities if they do not take the Reform the Great Khanate decision in time. It's a possible end goal for them, and it is ever an endgame one. It will afford you a new de jure lands and a major choice: establish an admin, feudal, or clan empire, or raise civilization to the ground and let nomadism reign. We'll leave the specifics of that madness to your imagination, but it shouldn't disappoint. Now, the nomadic domicile lands somewhere between the landless adventurer's camp and the administrative estate in many aspects. While mobile like the camp, as you can gather from the wheels attached to the central yurt, it serves as a focal point for the whole realm, rather than just a small group of adventurers. We tried to reflect that with the domicile buildings, referred to hitherto as yurts. We hope they give nomads numerous ways to deal with the harshness of living in the steppe. As always, please be mindful that numbers shown here are not final and are subject to change. Each of the yurts provides various bonuses centered around particular aspects of nomadic life. There is one more yurt not visible in the screenshot shown, the barter stalls, upgradable into Grand Bazaar. It can be constructed if your realm borders the settled people outside of the steppe and connects to the summoned wealthy visitors and the established Paisa system decisions we've shown in previous dev diaries. Let's take a closer look at the central yurt first. As you can see, it is a start, but not much. Resources, cunning, and higher dominance will be needed to expand your domicile. Without higher dominance levels, you cannot upgrade your central yurt. And without higher levels of the central yurt, you cannot construct and upgrade additional yurts. And without yurts, no yurts. Thus, your nomadic capital grows with your power and hopefully serves as a record of the road that got you there. As you can see in the screenshots shown, each yurt has internal slots for upgrades that allow for further customization of your domicile. We will be referring to them as yurts as well. It's all yurts now. Yurts cost gold, prestige, and herd. While the costs are fairly low at the start, they get much higher with each upgrade. The steepest difference is in the gold cost. As gold income for nomadic characters is much smaller than for settled people, fully upgraded yurts require a lot of gold redistribution via raiding. So, what can you get for your hard-earned wealth? This yurt focuses heavily on warfare and raiding. If you're curious about the heavy horse archer men-at-arms, please keep on listening or quickly skip ahead to the men-at-arms section at the end of the video. If you wish to rely on sellswords, this yurt has you covered. The modifier gives you martial, prowess, and stewardship skills and is only available on the 6th level of this yurt. If your tributaries are providing you with archers and skirmishers, this yurt will allow you to squeeze extra value from them. As one of the most trusted Timuchin advisors allegedly once said, conquering the world on horseback is easy. It is dismounting and governing that is hard. When your glorious horde has swept across the steppe, the court yurt will provide you with more tools to deal with your trusted subordinates and newfound subjects. If ruling the steppe is a family business for you, since only blood guarantees loyalty, this yurt will allow you to reap additional bonuses from having your step aunts and step brothers in your Kurultai. If you're curious about Kurultai, please continue watching. More about them later in the video. This is an upgrade to the fertility and herd-centric millet storage yurt. For others, the deserts are inhospitable and provide little fertility and herd. With a little bit of investment, your nomads can thrive where others suffer and perish. There are similar yurts that cover other types of terrain as well. To further specialize, some cultural traditions have received nomadic bonuses as well. Once again, more about that later in the video. We already spoke about obedience in our first nomadic dev diary, but as a refresher, obedience is a binary state for subjects and courtiers of nomadic rulers. Obedience increases the chances of a peaceful migration and vassalization, and it reduces the chance of a tributary breaking free or joining their allies in a war against their suzerain, as well as reducing the chances of a character using a murder scheme against their overlord or otherwise joining a faction against them. More importantly, obedience is the only way to guarantee a peaceful succession, as explained in our previous dev diary. Several factors impact obedience, like opinion, having a good relationship, being a Kurultai member, or being employed in a court position. Traits also impact how likely a character is to be obedient, and underage characters and herders will always be obedient. However, there are some tools that you can use to convince someone to become obedient to you. Negotiate obedience is a character interaction that can be used to bribe someone with either herd or gold. Demand obedience costs prestige, but only those with 45 dread or more will be able to intimidate their targets into accepting. Impose obedience is a new intent type available for all kinds of hunts. With it, events are more likely to give out obedience as a reward, especially if the hunt is successful. Besides the Stargazer, already covered in our previous dev diary, we needed to add some other court positions to make the nomads feel unique from feudal rulers. In most cases, we have simply renamed the positions, whereas for others we have chosen to replace one position with another one outright. The first is the Chief Law Overseer, who in many ways takes the role of the seneschal for a feudal ruler. They ensure capital control, legitimacy, and obedience. They have access to the seneschal tasks as well, such as organized court and managed domain. But they also have access to a new task called Blend Cultures, which will increase cultural acceptance with cultures within the realm. The second core position is the Boyan, one of your leading generals. It improves your military and gives you access to 2 new tasks: Cow Vassals, which will increase vassal contribution, and Prepare Raids, which increases raid speed and movement. The third core position is the Yurtchi, a position similar to a quartermaster that oversees both your camp and your troops. It has access to 2 tasks, either decreasing everyone's opinion of you and costing a lot of prestige but gaining more gold, or spending gold to increase everyone's opinion of you and popular opinion. The Keeper of the Horse ensures your steeds are well equipped for war and travel. They also have access to the 2 tasks that Master of the Horses usually have access to for feudal rulers. The Siege Engineer is an instrumental position if you want to start sieging areas outside of the Great Steppe. It has access to a task to increase fort level in your lands, but also a new task that gives a chance to get access to siege weapon men-at-arms. This position can only be held by someone with a military engineer trait, so you will likely have to look outside of the steppe to find a fitting candidate for it. As the chief of the bodyguards, the Chirby will improve other bodyguards, give access to more knights, and increase some of your men-at-arms effectiveness. They can access the regular bodyguard task and a new task that improves your scheme defenses. Finally, we have a position for those with many tributaries, the Foreign Emissary. It has access to the task Entertain Courtiers from the Court Jester and a new task to increase cultural acceptance and gain opinion with your tributary cultures. Nomadic rulers no longer have access to the regular council of other rulers, but instead have a unique Kurultai setup for their council. They keep the Spymaster, but the rest of the positions have been replaced with a new Kurultai position. Each of the Kurultai members has access to the same 8 tasks: 2 for diplomacy, 2 for stewardship, 2 for martial, and 2 for learning. To start, 2 tasks have been moved from regular councils to the Kurultai: increased control from the marshal and domestic affairs from the chancellor. As for their other tasks, let's start with their new default task. It's a simple diplomacy task that they can always fall back on to improve herd gain and capacity for their liege. For the nomads who are growing larger and beginning to settle more, they should consider utilizing the managed fertility task to ensure that their lands are as well taken care of as possible. Whereas for a smaller nomadic ruler planning to migrate more often, maybe you just want to squeeze the land before moving on. Then it might be good to see if you can get as much out of it as possible before moving on. If you are interested in being a tourist in foreign lands, so to say, this will enable you to maximize the number of souvenirs you can bring home again. If you want to maximize the potential of your stargazer and their predictions, having a well-taught Kurultai member who can help them out will be key to improving their aptitude. If you are more interested in hybridizing your culture or changing something around, you should look to the final new task for the Kurultai. This will mesh well with the 2 new court position tasks we have added to improve cultural acceptance in your lands or your tributaries' lands. 3 of these tasks can only be done by a single Kurultai member at a time: Organize Raiders, Aid Stargazer, and Explore Cultures, because otherwise they would most likely be too effective or work strangely. Meanwhile, 2 tasks cannot be done in the same province at once: Manage Fertility and Exploit Lands, because they are essentially doing the opposite of one another. Exploit lands can only be done inside of your domain instead of in the realm at large as well. We found it was way too good if you could simply squeeze your vassals dry by exploiting their land to the fullest extent. As you may have noticed in some of the pictures, we have also added a small UI change to how their tasks look. Since it was pretty noisy to have 8 tasks shown for all 4 Kurultai members at all times, we added a new little window you can open and close to choose the tasks you want. Nomads on the steppe hunted all the time. It was a way of life for them. To represent this, we couldn't leave hunts exactly as they were, costing gold, which is a resource that nomads generally do not have access to. Instead, they cost herd, and have a host of additional benefits for nomads in particular. Nomads pay a nominal amount of herd to start their hunt activities, and upon finishing a hunt, they gain a stocked meat modifier which reduces the cost of their next feast, a perfect way to get the gold required for hosting Tsagan Sars. Nomads tend to find a lot more animal sightings through their flavor content, which boosts success chances for any hunts located in those provinces. They'll get sightings for regular game, birds, and dangerous beasts, the latter of which has additional benefits to hunt. Taking down dangerous beasts such as wolves will give you both dread and prowess, both for you and for all of the participating hunters. You should expect to be invited to many hunts on the steppe, as AI nomads are always on the hunt for more prestige, and will now, in addition to who they previously invited, invite their tributaries, suzerains, and potential friends and lovers to their hunts. Now moving on to a more flavorful topic, the Nomad Feast, the Tsagan Sar. Observed in the coldest months of the year, December to March, the Tsagan Sar ensured that the new year started with a bout of revelry, and many would exchange gifts during it. As the host, you can choose which gift you'd prefer to receive, and as a guest, you can choose which gift to send to the host in turn. The Tsagan Sar brings encounters not seen in a regular feast. Race against your peers, gamble against your local yurt's drunkard, or even demand gifts from your guests. And of course, you cannot forget a staple of steppe culture, throat singing. During your feast, you can learn a throat singing style, which can benefit you in further tournaments. For followers of Tengri, the feast concludes with a declaration honoring the animal according to the lunar calendar. There are 12 different animals associated with the lunar solar calendar, each offering a different boon. Building on the hunt changes mentioned before, nomads have access to a new hunt type, the Nurg. Known as the Great Hunt, dozens of hunters would gather in the steppe to slay hundreds of animals. Along with being an opportunity to gain prestige, this new hunt type offers a unique intent: dreadful. The Nurg was not only an opportunity to slaughter beasts for the next feast, but a great way to flex on your tributaries and vassals. Contrary to a traditional hunt, the Nurg was used to practice military tactics that led to Mongol victories. If your Nurg is successful, along with gaining prestige, gold, and legitimacy, you'll also gain some strategies used for battle via commander traits and experience. What better way to immortalize your legacy as a mighty Khan than to construct a leisure palace fit for a conqueror? This decision becomes available to you once you have a kingdom title. Based on A Vision and a Dream, the Kublai Khan poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, a favorite here amongst the Studio Black development teams. This decision allows you to construct the Pleasure Dome building, offering a substantial bonus to your feast, taxes, prestige, schemes, and court grandeur. On top of that, you can now invite courtiers with congenital beauty traits. It's time to secure your dynasty's lineage. The Burkhan Khaldun is one of the mountains in northeastern Mongolia. This mountain had a special religious significance to the peoples of the steppe, as it was the mythical birthplace of the historical Genghis Khan. To reflect that, we've added a special building to the map, giving out piety and renown rewards, as well as some military advantages to having control over such an imposing natural feature. Oh bother, you might say in your most emphatic Winnie the Khan voice. The steppes are too small, and my realm has overflowed into a neighboring region full of icky settled peoples, and not enough pasturage for my herds. Worry not, O horse lord of the 1,000-acre steppe, you can expand the steppe if your grip on these new lands is firm enough. by completely controlling, either through vassals or tributaries, specific regions that neighbor the existing steppe, and with enough prestige and pizzazz, you can add your conquered region to the steppe, giving these lands some much-needed fertility and making it easier to migrate around in as a good nomadic leader. Even more regions can be added as the steppe grows. The only limit is the endurance of your horde and how far they're willing to ride. If your character is an adventurer, there's a chance that the nomadic lifestyle will appeal to them. For this, we've added a special decision to adopt the nomadic ways. If you move your camp to a county held by a herder, you'll be able to take over their lands and hybridize with the local culture, becoming a proper nomad. A percentage of your provisions will be transformed into herd, and you will join the Great Steppe situation. However, if that herd was a tributary or vassal to a previous nomadic ruler, you will be asked to become a tributary yourself or make an awful first impression. Besides the migration, invasion, tributarization, and nomadic quarrels, we have added 2 extra new types of casus belli, only available to nomadic characters. The humiliation casus belli is available to target a ruler of higher dominance than you, or the Gurkhan. This is a great tool to try and stop someone on their way to becoming the greatest of Khans. If you win a humiliation war, the loser is forced to go down 1 dominance level, putting the regular 5-year cooldown on them to prevent them from changing it back immediately, as well as to pay part of their herd and prestige to you, as well as some of their obedient vassals deciding that they should not obey a defeated liege. The retaliation casus belli becomes available when a character migrates into one of your tributaries' lands and decides not to pay tribute to you. If you win a retaliation war, you will force the character to become your tributary regardless, as well as make them pay some herd and prestige to you in addition to that. Now, as the leader of a nomadic people, it feels wrong to not have skilled hunters and other characters ready at your will. Because of this, we've added a new Recruit from Nomadic Capital decision, where you can choose to spend a nominal amount of herd, symbolizing that the ones you recruit can no longer manage their flux, in exchange for 3 courtiers of the desired type. These characters will be of the culture and faith of your people, and generally quite skilled. Not all types of courtier are available from the start though. Some require you to construct specific Yurt Buildings, a perfect way to get skilled hunters for your hunt activities, where the hunting skill of the guests affects your success chance. You can also get good knights, commanders, shepherds, good as vassals, brides, and husbands. With herd being the bread and butter of a nomadic ruler, as well as their main currency, there must be multiple ways to obtain it at will. Landed rulers can increase their taxes, ask their head of faith for gold, and others can trade hooks for gold as well. But as the ruler of the steppe, you have no such options, so how do you obtain herd outside of normal means? Well, since you can't embezzle or launder large flocks of animals, the next best thing is to simply steal them. With the steal herd scheme, you'll be able to choose how much herd to steal, with bigger amounts making the task more difficult to accomplish successfully. The scheme uses agents, ensuring that your thievery is a success. If you manage to succeed in stealing another ruler's herd, there is a small chance of gaining additional outcomes. You can go for more herd, some of the ruler's gold, his wife, or even a head start in a murder plot against them. Before we started working on Khans of the Steppe, we felt that the cultural tradition selection for nomadic characters was a bit bland. The big 3 of horse lords, malleable invaders, and steppe tolerance were present for almost all of the cultures, meaning there was little difference between Kimeks and Mongols. Since all 3 were required to have access to nomad-like flavor and mechanics, further customization was heavily limited. Now with all the new features and content that this DLC brings you, this is no longer the case. The starting cultural traditions have been rearranged, some existing traditions have received new effects and modifiers, and of course, we have new ones as well. The Wolves of the Deep Steppe cultural tradition represents the strength of the inner steppe. The Mongols start with this tradition, and while all nomadic cultures can get it as well, it is much more expensive for cultures with heritage other than Mongolic. For details on the Mangudai men-at-arms, please keep watching. The Iron Cavalry cultural tradition represents where steppe warriors meet the iron-working wonders of settled peoples. Turkmen and Oghuz cultures have this tradition at game start. The Tribes of the North cultural tradition is a bit different. It is present for the cultures that border the northern end of the Crusader Kings 3 map, the Buryats, Kyrgyz, Ostyaks, Oryats, and Permians. Some of those have the nomadic government like the Buryats, while Ostyaks and Permians are still considered tribal. Those tribes had a history of defiance while faced with adversaries. Heirs of Temujin, ruling over the vast lands, still needed to endeavor a punitive expedition every decade or so to bring the northerners to heel, if only for prestige's sake. This tradition can be obtained via hybridization. It is heavily connected to the Siberian Permafrost County modifier. This modifier is placed on the game start to counties up north, and it offers some powerful bonuses while preventing development growth and the creation of a feudal state with stone castles. Additionally, we have added new nomadic effects to some of the existing cultural traditions to make them a more viable and interesting choice when riding across the Great Steppe. Here, we will show just a couple of examples. The Stalwart Defender's cultural tradition now unlocks a special yurt and gives a bonus to toughness for your nomadic horde. The Pastoralist cultural tradition provides a fertility boost in certain terrains and increases the fertility growth of your herders. Now, do you ever pop open Crusader Kings to play as your favorite steppe people? The Kameks, of course. Flip open your army tab and see that you have pikemen, siege weapons, and some other units that don't exactly represent the riders of your tribe. It was clear what had to be done for nomadic men-at-arms in this expansion. They needed to be limited from units that are much more emblematic of sedentary armies, and they needed some cool new units of their own. So, there you go. If you were playing a nomadic character with no unique men-at-arms through traditions, your main way to get heavy or light infantry, pikemen, archers, and proper siege weapons is through your non-nomadic tributaries. How exactly this works was outlined in Dev Diary 165. But forget about those dorks plodding around in the dust in their soft little civilized shoes. You don't need their men-at-arms. As a mighty nomad, you need only, and are supremely skilled as, cavalry. The main mass of nomadic armies aren't levies. These are replaced by the less pathetic horde riders, which are converted over from herd size when armies are raised. Even though they're, of course, themed after horse archers, they don't have the archer cavalry type in order to limit the effects of bonuses and counters. Otherwise, these could really get out of hand, given that horde riders will make up the vast majority of every nomadic army. All nomadic characters will have access to classic basic horse archers. They're largely unchanged in Cons of the Steppe. Steppe raiders, meanwhile, are nomadic light cavalry which are better suited to dry and rough terrain than other nomadic cavalry units, receiving only mild penalties in hills, mountains, and wetlands. They're also available to all nomadic characters. Nomadic rulers won't have direct access to real, substantially effective siege weapons until they can get a sweet tributary connection to hook them up, so they will have to make do with torchbearers in the meanwhile. Even worse than onagers, at least this standard nomad siege unit gets a siege bonus against nomadic holdings. Only unlocked by building the Square of the Tumen domicile building, heavy horse archers are a more costly alternative with more fighting punch, and a very handy counter against light cavalry, also elephants. To counterbalance this, they suffer more penalties in harsh terrain. When you reach the second level of dominance, you are able to recruit nomad lancers. What this means is that nomadic rulers of means have access to heavy cavalry, even right at the 867 game start date. The Mongol cultural tradition, Wolves of the Deep Steppe, gives them access to the Mangudai. These vainglorious warriors have very high attack and pursuit, but low defense, meaning that they devastate defeated armies and leave few survivors. Their reckless attack and repeated retreats excel at breaking up formations, allowing armies with Mangudai to counter heavy infantry and spearmen. Inspired by the Tangut Iron Harriers and the Mamluks, this unit is available to a spread of cultures that were known for their employment of heavily armored horse archers. Note, however, that the unit's type is heavy cavalry and not archer cavalry. This allows cataphract archers to counter archer cavalry and be one of the best ways to fight back against steppe conquerors. The Matrikan warriors represent foot archers from all along the northern Siberian frontier, drawing particular inspiration from the noble Khanty warriors, which lent the unit its name. Now, the glorious guard of Genghis himself can be yours, should you make it far enough down the new nomadic dynasty legacy tree. You're limited to hiring just one regiment of this special men-at-arms unlock, but increase that regiment in size, and you'll see it packs quite a punch. And with that, we have almost reached the end of our development diaries dedicated to Cons of the Steppe. In our next dev diaries, we'll go over modding support, art, as well as music in Cons of the Steppe, but this is our last feature spotlight. As always, thank you for watching. Now, go forth and conquer.